911. What's your emergency? A heavy pause, then barely audible, a woman's whisper, raw with fear. Please, he's going to kill me. I'm in the dark. I don't know where. Line crackles, a muffled male shout in the background. The victim gasps, a thud, then dead air. Ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me? Stay on the line. Silence. Ominous music swells gently, then settles. It was 3:07 a.m. on October 14th when that call pierced the stillness of the Marion County Dispatch Center. A whisper, a plea, then nothing. For the night shift operator, it was the kind of call that crawls under your skin, the kind you never forget. But no one could have predicted that those 14 seconds of audio would become the key to unlocking a nightmare that had been festering for years, hidden in plain sight. This is the story of the 3 a.m. phone call that led detectives to a horrifying discovery. When the sun rose that morning, the call was flagged by a supervisor. The phone number belonged to 27-year-old Sarah Jennings, an oncology nurse from Brentwood. Her roommate had already reported her missing 9 hours earlier, after Sarah failed to return from what she described as a casual coffee date with a man she'd met on a dating app. Laptops, receipts, nothing out of the ordinary. Except her phone was now pinging a cell tower in a rural patch of land 17 miles outside the city. And it wasn't moving. Lead detective Alan Martinez had worked missing persons for over 2 decades. He knew the cruel statistics. The first 48 hours are everything. But the whisper on that 911 recording changed the calculus. Sarah hadn't just vanished. She'd reached out. And in the background, sharp-eared audio analysts later isolated a terrifying sound. The distinct clank of a heavy metal latch, followed by what acoustics experts confirmed was a subterranean echo. She was somewhere underground. Within the hour, Martinez mobilized a tactical response. Cell tower triangulation and a warrant for historical location data painted a chilling picture. The signal from Sarah's phone had moved along a remote county route before stopping at 2:48 a.m., just 19 minutes before her 911 call. It hadn't moved since. The coordinates led to an abandoned dairy farm, known locally as the Harlow Property. On the registry, it belonged to a man named David Harlow, 41, a former agricultural equipment mechanic with no criminal record. What they found there was a picture of neglect, a sagging barn, rusted silos, and a farmhouse that looked like it hadn't seen a living soul in a decade. But beneath the rot, there were fresh tire tracks and a single storm cellar door, padlocked from the outside. Officers secured the perimeter as the detective knelt beside that cellar. A K9 unit's cadaver dog sat stock still at the door, its trained silence signaling the unthinkable. A bolt cutter snapped the padlock. The doors groaned open, releasing a wave of cold, foul air. Inside, a steep staircase descended into an abyss. What awaited them in that 12 by 20-foot hellhole defies easy description. The cellar had been reinforced and expanded over years into a soundproofed subterranean cell. A survivalist's pantry sat next to a table of restraints, and in the corner, huddled beneath a threadbare blanket, was Sarah Jennings, barely conscious, dehydrated, and bearing ligature marks on her wrists, but alive. Officer Carlos Ramirez was the first to reach her. Later, at the press conference, his voice would crack, describing the moment she grabbed his arm and whispered, "I knew you'd come. I kept pressing redial." But Sarah's rescue was not the end. It was the beginning of the horror. When forensic teams lit the rest of that bunker with portable floodlights, they saw what the single dangling bulb had concealed. On the far wall, a macabre gallery, 3 driver's licenses pinned in a neat row, each belonging to a woman who had been reported missing over the past 4 years. Next to them, Polaroids, dozens of them. Detectives expanded the search grid at dawn. The cadaver dog's alert hadn't been just for the bunker. 50 yards behind the barn, beneath a patch of disturbed earth covered with quicklime, crime scene investigators unearthed 3 shallow graves. The remains were identified through dental records as the women in the photographs. Emily Corso, 24, missing 2019. Leah Tran, 26, missing 2020. And Monica Ruiz, 31, missing 2022. All had been connected to the same dating app. All had vanished after a first date that was their last. The killer, David Harlow, was arrested without incident at his daytime job in a machine shop 2 hours later. He wore a blank expression and asked for a lawyer after uttering only one sentence: "You were never meant to hear her." Detectives would come to understand that Sarah's 911 call, made by blindly triggering the emergency SOS function on her phone tucked in her waistband, was the sliver of chance that shattered his decade of impunity. Harlow had methodically chosen women he deemed won't be missed quickly, isolating them in a chamber where no scream could escape. But he underestimated a terrified nurse's resolve to stay alive. Investigators pieced together Harlow's chilling methodology. He used fake profiles on popular dating apps, love-bombing his targets for weeks before suggesting a secluded stargazing date at his inherited property. Once he gained their trust, he'd drive them there, offer a drink laced with a fast-acting sedative, and by the time they awoke, they were already locked in the dark. His digital footprint revealed he'd monitored his victims' social media, celebrating their birthdays in his twisted bunker, with candles he kept in a drawer. But the 3 a.m. call provided the thread that unraveled it all. The audio recording captured not only Sarah's whisper, but 0.8 seconds of a distinctive mechanical hum, a 1970s-era ventilation fan that forensic engineers traced to a specific model only installed in that bunker. And when the phone's GPS placed her there, the noose tightened. In a chilling interview later, dispatch supervisor Linda Farrell recalled, "We trained for this, but you never expect the silence on the other end to speak so loudly." That silence saved a life and uncovered 3 lost ones. David Harlow was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and multiple aggravated offenses. Faced with an avalanche of forensic evidence, including DNA from the graves and the surviving victim's testimony, he pled guilty to all charges in March, avoiding the death penalty, but receiving 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. In her victim impact statement, Sarah Jennings said, "He stole the dark from me because I learned to scream without sound. I learned to push a button that brought light." Today, the Harlow farm has been razed. A memorial garden stands in its place for Emily, Leah, and Monica, planted with night-blooming flowers that open only after sunset, a tribute to the hour that broke the case. And every year, on October 14th at 3 a.m., the dispatch center in Marion County holds a moment of silence, not for the lost, but for the whisper they finally heard. The 3 a.m. phone call that led detectives to a horrifying discovery was not just a beginning of horror, but the end of a killer's empire of silence. It's a stark reminder that behind every cold case, there is a voice waiting to be heard, and sometimes all it takes is a single trembling whisper and the courage to press a button in the dark.